Welcome, Kimberly, to Happy Plus with me. And I am so excited to have you here today because I want to pick your brain on the expertise that I'm always talking about, the mental health, spiritual, emotional, all that good stuff. So, for those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm Angie P, and I was battling depression and anxiety and am a suicide survivor. So I just want to say thank you and welcome.
Thank you. This is such a match made in heaven because all the things you're talking about, those are my favorite topics. I'm just so
Yes,
glad we found each other.
me too. Me too. How was your vacation? Like I've been how was your vacation? I know that you was on vacation.
Yes, it was awesome. It was a first family cruise we've ever taken, and it was so nice to be unplugged and just, really just enjoying God's creation and not thinking about all the things that can cause stress. So it was fantastic. So you're catching me on like my first day back, and I feel so refreshed.
There you go. The good one. Well, welcome because I was anticipating just to meet you and even have questions just down for you. So just to get a field of who you are, what you do, and what made you obviously expert in these topics.
Okay, yes. So I'm Kimberly Christian. My credentials that you're seeing on the screen right now stand for licensed clinical social worker. And so what that means is that I have a master's degree in social work, and I went a couple of extra years beyond the master's program to be clinically able to do private practice. And so I have been doing private practice as a therapist for about 13 years. I've been a social worker for 17. And it's really only in like the last maybe 5 years, not long at all, that I've really made my focus and concentration strictly about faith-based things. So I've been a believer my whole life, and I know we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in your questions.
Yes.
But
Because
as
those are my two favorite topics. Like they're becoming my two favorite topics. Again, the mental health, how to be, happy, and then God.
yes,
Like God is plays obviously a good part throughout the whole journey and then just finding faith. And right now I say I'm here because of God. So that's why I talk about it. So
and I
it's
hope
good.
many
It's good.
people hear that because they need to hear that they're here
Hmm.
because of him, that he has a purpose for every day that they're here.
Exactly. Exactly. It took me a while um to kind of get to that conclusion, right? Like it took me to be at the lowest of the lowest to know that he is the way, and even throughout all of this coming better on the other side. And it's not like, oh God, I have God in my life and everything is now perfect, because they're still struggling. Like life be lifing sometimes. And because because I have like that faith and that hope and I know he got me kind of thing, is that I'm able honestly to, let it go, give it to God, and that helped me tremendously. Like that's one of the things that I talk about, like the power of prayer, because it does work,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
right?
you mentioned a really important word there when you said hope. He is the only hope. And that's one thing that I can say, just as we're kind of starting this off as far as like my therapeutic journey is I've done this whole therapy thing from a very academic and like secular perspective, and that doesn't mean anything bad at all. It just means like mainstream, like the way that I was taught in grad school, how you're supposed to deal with people of different ethnicities and diverse backgrounds and all of these things. We're supposed to be very inclusive. And I'm all for all of those things. In many, many ways I am. But it was really only when I felt like God was like kind of not kind of really getting my attention to say therapy is nothing outside of me. Like he was like really saying, watch what it's like when someone comes to you and they need hope and you can't talk about me. And I would catch myself stopping and realizing this person isn't ready for this. I'm not allowed to do this. They're never going to come see me again if I talk about this. But there is no hope outside of Jesus. There is none. I've actually seen that people have these temporary lifts with medication, and they have temporary lifts when there's a really good session that they have, but nothing that's lasting, and certainly nothing that keeps them long term from experiencing suicidality.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I agree. I mean, the same thing. It's like you have to have that hope, right? Especially when you're in the dark times. Because at that point it's like you're not seeing a way out. There's no out. Like again, take it from me where I was like, I didn't have a way out. This was my way out of the pain, of the thoughts, of all of this. And it's like, who's gonna pull you out? Who do you want it to be pulled out? But some people, they just don't accept that kind of thing. And I feel like that's why sometimes they get stuck, because it's like you have to look at it
Yeah.
on the other side,
Yeah.
right? So what is CBT? I know you talk about that a lot in your
Yeah.
videos. Yeah.
Yeah. CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's the number one modality of therapy. It's what every therapist at least knows something about. Yeah. But in
Okay.
essence, what it's doing is it's teaching people how to be aware of their thoughts so that they are able to better control and manage their emotions properly and then ultimately change their behavior. So it's the thoughts, feelings, behavior sequence.
I agree. One of the things that I talk about also a lot, it is awareness. Like for me, it took me a while to even know what that is. And I'm like, but how do I know that I'm not being aware right now? Like I just didn't know, because I'm just doing the same thing, the same habits, the same environment kind of thing. But once I like really, it took me time to like really sit with myself and like see my feelings, see my triggers, feel my feelings, right? Feel my triggers. So that way, when I know that I'm experiencing or feeling something negative, then I can again change it to positive, whether with prayers, whether with affirmation, like whatever it is, music therapy. The point is, I didn't want to get stuck, because like I told myself at one point, I'd never want to feel like that again. So once I know that I'm getting getting to that point, I just kind of like try to flip it as fast as I can, because I'm like, I understand that we have those feelings, that or those thoughts and emotions, right? I don't believe that it's good for us to sit on those thoughts and feelings for too long.
Well, we have the choice. I think that's where people, like you're saying, that's where they get stuck is they think, well, I feel this way. I remember thinking that for a good portion of my life early on, as if I felt that way, it had to be true. And it was only learning all of these really, really deep concepts that it allowed me to see this venue of change. Like if, and I tell my patients this all the time, if you don't like how you feel, you don't have to stay there. But if you do nothing, you're ultimately supporting the thoughts that keep producing those feelings over and over and over. So outside of tragedy, like outside of something that just instantly happens that just rocks your whole world, basically everything else, we have the ability to say, well, I don't like how I feel today. Oh, okay. Well, then I need to think about what I've been thinking, because that's my
Mhm.
clue. That's what's going to tell me. If I started my day saying, man, this whole day stinks because I went, I got in my car and my husband had not filled it up with gas for me. He knew I had to go to work today. Why didn't he do that? If I started my day thinking that, then every single hour remaining is going to have that lens of disappointment, loss of respect, loss of appreciation, just bummed out basically, for lack of saying it any other way. Like I just have this gloom on me because my day started out wrong, in my opinion. So when you said you have to flip it as quickly as you can, I'm sharing this for your audience to see. That's like a common way to say that. The clinical term that we would use in that is that's what disputing is. When you're taking something and you're saying, I'm going to examine the evidence of this. If I'm going to tell myself this and it's going to cause this feeling, it better be true. I better look for some evidence that's going to back this up. And if I don't, then I've got to throw it out or I've got to replace it with something that is true. And so if it's okay with you, I want to go back to something you just said a second
Yeah.
ago, because it's just really on my heart right now. I know we're going to talk a lot about just mental health and faith in general, but this is a big deal. When you were talking about people getting really stuck and being at such a low point and just thinking, I don't know how to get out of this, combine that with what we were talking about regarding hope. One of the reasons why I'm saying my message about why Jesus is the only hope that we ever have is because I am thinking about those moments that people have when they are just In their minds, they're at the end. They've either messed things up so bad they see no way of repairing it. They've made a horrible indiscretion, which leads a lot of people to suicidality. They just think, I've messed up my marriage. I've messed up my finances. I've messed up my family. There's no way to get through this. I'll tell you, after interviewing many, many, many people that have been suicidal chronically, what I see is they're basing a lot of their thoughts are something like, no one would care anyway, or they would be relieved, or I would be doing them a favor because all I'm doing is causing so much pain and so much agony. And here's the thing that's important. And I do think that the Lord wants your audience to hear this today, is when we base those kind of thoughts and those kind of decisions on other people, i.e. other humans, here's what's big and blows my mind. All of those people are going to change their opinion about you. Every single one of them. Your mom is going to change her opinion about you. Okay, as much as she loves you. And I'm a mom of 4. Okay, I get it. I love them like crazy, but I've changed my mind about them sometimes. I didn't change how much I love them, but I'm like, you're being a little turkey, right? And I'm disappointed and I'm in my own feelings about things. I hope that you're kind of tracking this because I'm taking something that's everyday, but showing how serious it is. The Lord never changes his mind about you. And that's what can pull somebody out of a dark moment, is when they stop having those thoughts and they realize that that's very enemy-like thinking of, oh, it doesn't matter anyway. Oh, nobody cares. Nobody's going to even, notice if you're gone. Again, you see, you're basing it on the opinions of humans. And maybe you did disappoint people, and maybe they are mad at you, and maybe they are shaming you. But you have got to remember that the Lord does not change how he feels about you. He made up his mind about us before he ever went to the cross. I am doing this because I love my creation. I love these people, and I want them to come into a right relationship with me again. And this is the only way. There's nothing that we're doing beyond that he's saying, oh, let me think about that again. That wasn't a good decision. But every other person falls in that category. Every person. And so that's why, in my opinion, combining faith-based concepts with suicidal thinking, it's just a must, because
I
that's where
believe
your
it.
identity and your self-esteem really comes from, is God has a plan. I didn't choose my birth. I didn't choose anything to do with that whatsoever. But he said, I intentionally want this person to come into this world. I've got plans for her.
Yeah. See? I love that because that's how I feel, and I know that it is a thing. Like, it is true. Because and those moments of, as you mentioned, like those moments of there's nothing else, because you hit a point there, because I was like, oh my God, I thought the same thing, where I'm like, if I am not here, then everything will be better. Like, my son will be better, the situation will be better. Even my mom, I'm like, okay, she'll get over it, kind of thing. Like, I'm the problem, right? And when I, decided, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. And like, I died for real. And then came back, woke up in the hospital. We had to do resuscitation, all of this. And I felt first like guilt, like, why me? Because I didn't understand, kind of thing. Then it took me a while of me crying. And I'm like, well, why me? And for those that believe, will believe me. For those that non-believers, they're not believe. But I heard God say, it's not your time. Like, it wasn't your time. So then this whole emotion of like the love and grace for me, because I'm like, he could have saved anybody better than me. I was like, I didn't even deserve it. I was so bad, kind of thing. And his grace for me. And that's how, like, I hold on to that. And that's like the hope that I talk about too. Like, hold on to that, because I was not a good one, but he just chose to save me. You're in that thing, in those moments, and again, there's a purpose for that person. There's a purpose that God is trying to work through them. And I feel like the more that we're in those thoughts, the far apart we get to that purpose, right? Because now we're letting all the enemy, mess with our head and all that stuff. But then it's like, it takes that will to try to get out of it.
And a lot of skills. It takes a
Hmm.
lot of skills to know how to navigate this road of mental health, and to know all the things that it takes. And don't let anybody fool you. I mean, this was really on my heart this morning as I was thinking about just my own patient load today and then meeting with you. A lot of people get really confused or maybe even cautious about talking about Satan as it relates to mental health because so many people will talk from the extreme side of, if you're dealing with mental health issues at all, then you're possessed by the devil. And that's just not true. It's just not true at
I've heard
all.
of those too.
But is it possible that he's involved in this? 100%. See, this is one of the distortions that I talk about a lot. I talk about this in my program, the Christian Method. One of the distortions is called all or nothing thinking. And it's one of my favorites to talk about because we find it so much in the Christian walk. And that's one of those examples. We look at it like he's either not a part of this at all, and don't even talk about mixing Satan with mental health. That's ridiculous. You're being overly spiritual, and I don't want to hear that. Or we think he's the cause for all of it. And that's not true either.
Hmm.
The truth is somewhere in the middle. And if you think about his techniques from the beginning of time, they haven't changed. They haven't changed at all. He knows humanity well enough to know I'm going to distort the dickens out of what they think because it's going to pull them away from God, and he's the only anchor that they have. He tried it with Jesus Christ himself,
Yeah.
right? Let me try to mess with his identity while he's weak. Let me try to, make him somehow think that I could offer him something, or I'm going to test him. And it's like, we're not being very smart, people, if we don't look at what Satan has done all through history and say, he's going to do the same things to me. If my thinking is distorted and I'm thinking, I'm not, I'm not anything. I've messed up my life and everybody else's life, and there's no, purpose for me. We're falling victim of that all over again, right? Because that's
Yeah.
not clear thinking. Clear thinking is to realize, like in the situation you just shared about your own life, no one can really understand the thoughts or the mind of God. I absolutely understand that. But I do think, just in the example you shared, that he knows what you are going to do with this story. So, I mean, that very well could be a reason he says, this is not your time because I know you, Angie, and you're going to take this story and you're going to tell lots and lots and lots of people, and you're going to give me glory for it. Not everybody's going to do that, but I know you will, and I trust you. And if I can trust you with this little, I can trust you with so much more. And so he gave you a platform to talk about things that are important to him. And this is important to him. How we think is important to him because it either brings us closer to him and helps us really to see our identity through how he sees us, or we're too scared to look at all this stuff and we just stay far away from it and our theology is messed up.
I believe it. That is true. See, and I'm looking at it at the spiritual side. You're the clinical side. Like, this is facts, you know? And I don't know. And it took me a while to even come up and share my story because I was feeling like this, like ashamed in a way, kind of like, but this is my story. Like, this is personal to me, or nobody's going to understand kind of thing. It's been almost 5 years, but then it took me a while to, like, the more I speak about it, even with my family and friends and stuff. Oh, this one is going through the same thing, and oh my God, you don't know the cousin from Florida is going through the same thing. Like, this is like a thing, especially like after COVID. I feel like anxiety, depression, suicide, all of that jumped a lot. Well, what can we do to trying to change it? And again, God give the glory, but all on my own, like reading books and doing this on my own. Like, I didn't even went to therapy
Mm,
kind of thing because
right,
because I was like scared and ashamed. Now getting like the opportunity and really getting the knowledge and the boldness, if I will, to just come out and talk about it because I know personally know people that are going through it right now.
right. And shame is a huge, huge part of what I would say are like the bookends of suicide because I've never and I've said this many times. I'm going to be careful with the way I'm saying it. I've never known anyone who attempted suicide that was not or was successful in death by suicide that was not dealing with shame. But not all shame ends that way. Does that make sense? A person can experience shame and they may not walk that path at all. But every suicide, no matter if it's an attempt or if it, ends up taking that person's life, shame was involved. There's no question about it. But here's the other part of that bookend is that, let's say, like you, Angie, they live to tell the story. They have to deal with that shame because it's so hard, even when you're grateful. And see, this is why feelings can coexist. Another one of my favorite things to talk about. Feelings can coexist. You can be so proud and so relieved and so happy and grateful that the Lord saved your life. And at the same time, you're experiencing so much shame that now you have to have conversations you never imagined having. Because remember, you thought you weren't going to make it.
Please.
Right? And now you're having to admit, I got to such a place that I thought it was better for me to not be here. So you have to have, and this is true for every Christian, but everybody has to come face to face with their pride. To me, that's like the pinnacle of understanding Christianity and really truly being saved is you have got to be smacked in the face with your own pride to realize that you need Christ, right? But then it has a way of like appearing in all these other little areas. And that's one of those, which I'm sure you understand and you can relate to, that you had to realize I'm either going to be prideful about this and never want to talk about it because it's just too embarrassing for me, or I'm going to take my pride, I'm going to set it aside or flush it because I care more about what God did through this. I care more about saving other lives. I care more about, I don't care what I have to share. If it saves somebody else, it draws them closer to the Lord, so be it, right? And that's the path you chose, but it's brave and it is bold. It's very bold.
I started the podcast like 2 years ago, and like I was just scared of how I was going to approach, or what am I going to talk about, or even what are people going to say.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like I don't even care what people are going to say because this is what it is. And again, I'm doing it for those that are seeking, that were me back then going through those stuff. Because again, I say if I would have had a person like me back then, that would have told me all of this, I probably would have listened and avoided a whole bunch of things, right? But I just had to go through it because I was stubborn. It's the environment, but like you said, I chose to stay. I didn't know any better. I didn't have God. I didn't know about God and stuff, but not fully how I know now. And it took a toll in every aspect, the spiritual, even physically, because living in the constant stress, right, producing cortisol. Again, this is science, right? Poison. I even developed hyperthyroid, extra hormones that I used to have shakes. I would wake up crazy and I'm like, what is happening? I know my body, something's wrong. And then surely enough, it's that like, oh, you're too stressed out. And after that, I don't even have that. I had to take medications for it for a while in treatment, nothing, because I'm going to counter the cortisol. I'm gonna flush it with the good um hormones, right? The dopamine, the oxytocin. So I'm always trying to look for things, that brings me happiness, that brings me trying new things, like exciting adrenaline, because now I want to live with purpose. I want to be good and I want to be happy and healthy to live out, right? Whatever purpose, God has. So those I always look about, I always talk about it and, just share. So what are some of the things that you would suggest to kind of get out of that mindset funk to at least level out to be good and happy with purpose kind of thing?
Statement of negative thinking. Okay. Guys, the negative thinking is what leads to depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorders. I mean, it leads to everything. It also leads to just general unhappiness. Even if a person doesn't have a diagnosis attached to that, they're just going to feel generally unhappy when you have negative thoughts. But just like you said earlier, and you said it so well, although I'm paraphrasing this, you were saying like you don't know what you don't know, right? When you don't realize that you're unaware, you don't know that you're unaware, because it's like it's the same thing for people who are dealing with distorted thinking. I'm really, really good at it now. I mean, it's my job to listen to people. And at the end of our time, I've been paying attention to what distortions are present so that I can reflect that back to them. And I can basically give a treatment plan that says individual therapy or group therapy or whatever, psychiatrist, whatever they need. I can promise you, Angie, they don't know. They just think they're telling me their story just like they just told their girlfriend, 5 days ago. they're not realizing that a lot of the problem is the way they're seeing what has happened in their life. It's not just what has happened, it's really how you're seeing it. And so, changing your mindset, I'll say first and foremost, it is one of the hardest things a person could ever do, right? I mean, you can put it right up there with climbing a mountain or, doing something risky like that, like running a marathon, something you have to train for and you have to get your body prepared for. I see this exact same way because it's a retraining of how you think. And the average person has 60 to 80,000 thoughts in a day. That's a lot of thinking, right? And women are going to, traditionally, they're going to have more. We have more
Or
thoughts,
if you're overthinker, then you have
even
double
more.
that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But that's a huge number, right? And so for us to be able to realize that that's a problem, and it is for all of us. This is not singling anybody out for a diagnosis that you have. Everybody has wrong thinking. Changing it means, just like we hear in any of the 12-step programs, they say the first thing is you have to admit that you have a problem, admit that you're powerless to it. I agree. I really agree. I think the first thing that helped me as a teacher of this and a learner of this, and then, helping patients, is just realizing you don't have it all together. You don't have perfect thinking. You're not Jesus. You're not ever going to be him. And the sooner that you really, it's like I said before, you have to come face to face with your pride and realize, could I be part of this problem? I want to say that it's this person. I want to say that it's my job and it's my boss every time. And I want to say it's the neighborhood I live in or the way my parents raised me. But we have choices that caused us to go from a 5-year-old with all of that background to now being a 35-year-old, carrying all of those thoughts and all of those core beliefs with us. So I'm amazed that you've done all the work that you've done without going through therapy. I'm really amazed. But I'm not shocked because I know God. And he is the greatest therapist that has ever walked this earth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no one that showed us perfectly how to be a therapist or a counselor in someone's life other than Jesus. He just modeled it perfectly. And so I know that if he has been your guide, you're in terrific hands. And at the same time, I know that it has really proven to be effective when there's a very succinct way of learning what you, like you said, learning that awareness. You can't just say, oh, I've got wrong thinking. You need to understand, well, what is causing this? What is the wrong thinking? What is the name of what it is that you're doing? Are you someone who jumps to conclusions a lot? Are you someone who makes assumptions a lot? And let me tell you, people that make assumptions, they don't know they're making assumptions. Isn't that funny?
Yes.
They literally think it's so true that when I try to like gently call them on that and do my famous thing where I say, let's check the facts about this. Do you know you're about to be fired? Do you have any evidence of that you're about to be fired? No. Well, then what are we basing it on? Well, I just feel that way. I feel like I'm okay. Well, feelings aren't facts,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't get to use that as your evidence. So, and that's no small task at all, helping someone to see that they really have wrong thinking in several areas that's responsible for several different symptoms, wrong relationships, dysfunction. And then there's the whole process of retraining yourself to now think godly, to think biblically. And it's excruciating for people sometimes. I'm not going to lie about it. It is my favorite kind of work because it really helps people to be so focused and centered on the Lord that it changes their self-esteem. It changes the boundaries they have. It changes relationships and the way that they communicate and all of these many, many things. But it also means that you're basically getting like a body scan. You're seeing from head to toe every single thing that's essentially wrong. Like whatever's not working, therapy has a way of revealing that. And it's not always pretty, but I tell people a lot, you have to know how ugly it is so you can appreciate the beauty. If you never understood how bad things were, then I can tell you're making progress, but you have nothing to compare it to. So you're just like, oh yeah, I guess I'm better. No, let me tell you what it was like when we first met,
Yeah.
right? And remind you that, wow, now you're just doing this automatically. I know the way I'm describing this probably sounds like it takes ages. And for some people, it does. It really does. I've known people that have gotten better from therapy, but they were spending, 15, 20 years And then they came to see me, and I would ask them about, well, tell me what was going on during, all of this time. They were getting better, but the way they were doing CBT was very like process oriented, meaning like the therapist is just kind of talking with them about life. And occasionally they might say, um, what's making you think that way? Or we need to change that thought. You see how that could drag it on and drag, because every time a patient comes back into therapy, now they're talking about something different.
Mm.
They're now saying, oh, well, let me tell you what my husband and I talked about last night. And it really got me triggered. Right. But then the week before, they were talking about their job. So the way that I do this, or the way that I've learned to do CBT is very structured. It's basically what psychological research recommends is 12 to 16 weeks. And that cuts out a lot of this processing, where we get together and we just get down to business. Wherever we left off, we're going to talk about that next distortion or that next belief, and we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to pull examples, but we're not going to, talk about all these horrible things that are going on and how bad you feel about yourself, only for me to nod my head and say, how do you feel about that? And in the last 5 minutes, I give you a worksheet and say, well, work on that and we'll see how it goes. I don't,
Yeah, and then the thing is, like, how about if they don't even want to do the worksheet kind
and
of
most
thing?
people don't. They don't. And I'm not saying that as like a knock on them at all. What I'm saying is people are busy. It's up to people like
Life
me
be life.
to really be able to respect people's time. And I'm not saying I never ask people to do outside work. I absolutely do. And my online program is all about doing outside work. But they're still getting tremendous results in 4 months' time because the homework is focused on what they're learning. And if they're working with me individually, I do offer things for them to do, but honestly, I have this reputation and I know I do. I'm not even embarrassed about it. I'm someone that just wants to get to how are we going to solve this? If someone's telling me they have an issue, I don't want to spend 45 minutes just lamenting over it. That's not helping them. They can go to Starbucks and talk with their girlfriends or guy friends about this all they want. That's not what they're coming to me for. They're coming to me saying, I need help. I don't just need someone to listen. I don't need someone to be on my side. I need someone that's going to say, and here's what we're going to do about this. Let's try this approach. Let's work on this. And so my patients have a game plan by the time that we're done so that that time is being expedited. I want people to
Mm-hmm.
get better. I am not trying to keep people on my case roll for 25 years. God has some serious plans for me. I'm not trying to just going forever. I want people to get better quickly and eventually say to me, I don't need you. You've helped me, but I don't need you anymore. I got this.
See, and that's one of the things that I guess the taboo with therapy is you go to therapy and then you just stay there forever, forever. So it's like, do you really get better? Do you really? Because you keep coming back. And this is a thing. Like everyone that I know has a therapist or has like a counselor or someone that they're working with. But I should get someone too, just to kind of see how it is because it is good to have that extra person that tells you or even shows you to see things differently because obviously when we're just talking, especially talking with the feelings of I can't stand work and I can't stand this, we're
Yeah.
not looking,
Yes.
But yeah, I get it. I get it.
So
I
there
have
has to
two.
be. Oh, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead. I'm so sorry. No, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to say sometimes I run across situations like that too with patients. And, I just try to empower them to know that you can ask very specific questions when you're starting with a therapist. Like ask them, what is your style? When can I expect to see results?
Okay.
What kind of modality of treatment do you use? What is your success rate? There's things that you can ask that would cause a therapist to tell you enough where you can realize, oh, they probably have, a caseload of 20 or 30 people, but they've been treating them for 20 plus years. And these people are not getting better. They're not coming back for new issues. They're just still having coffee talk, right? If you have them explain how they help people get better, just like I said, here's what I know what I'm known for. I know that people know me as being a CBT therapist and someone who's very solution focused. I'm fine with that. I think it's a great thing. They may have other ways of seeing me, but I know that that's something that I'm really known for. And I don't mind at all answering those questions. That's our job is to help people know if this is going to be a good fit or not. And let's not waste time.
I'm gonna be like, show me your resume. Let me
Yes.
see, let me see if we can work together, kind of thing.
What are
All
your
right,
reviews
that's
looking like?
yes. I mean, I feel like that's because everybody has different styles. And those are good questions to ask. I just thought it was just, well, these are the list on, on the health insurance, pick one kind of thing. But
A lot
it's
of
no.
people think that.
I'm
Yeah.
sure because I thought that. I'm thinking that because, but it is good to know to
Well, no
ask those
one
questions.
tells you. No one tells you other than here's this list. They don't tell you what to look for or what to expect. And I just think I mean, that's just not how I've chosen to do that because I look at these two relationships that a person has with their therapist and their psychiatrist if they see both. Those are really, really, really important roles. I mean, think about it. You're putting these two people in a position to help you manage what's happening right in here that's controlling decision making and physicality and basically everything. This organ controls everything about us. I wouldn't hand that over to anybody, right? Just like I wouldn't just hand my kid over to be babysat by anybody without asking them a million questions. So if someone's getting offended by you asking a lot of questions, that's not a good fit for you. They need to be able to say, absolutely, I get it. This is a very big responsibility that I have, and you have every reason to want to know, or at least decide that in a few sessions. You're not going to know after one session, but you can also do some pre work and just say, in this 15-minute consultation, can I understand what your approach is and when could I typically expect to see any kind of results?
And I love that because when people are looking, they can ask and get the answer, right? I have my sister actually, again, I was talking about her and how I was going to have you on the podcast. And in conversation, she says that, she thinks she needs help, like, I guess, mental health. And I even asked her so she can kind of give the answer, not me just giving her the answer. But I was like, what type of help do you think you need? Right. And like, where do you think you can find? And she's like, I think I need a therapist. I need to talk to someone or whatever. So definitely share those tips and even recommend her to you because it's like the God thinking that I feel that it would be based on. Because that's what I was going to mention before. I have two ladies that I've been working with her, like, again, just changing them the mindsets from negative to positive. One of them, they were like, the goal was to get fit, right? She wanted to lose weight. This was last year. And I tell her it's like her mentality. And she tells me, we had a whole plan of achieving her goal, right? And she tells me, she's like, Angie, I know what I need to do. Like, I know the things, like, I am aware, but I just can't seem to do it. And I feel like I don't even know, like, what to say because in my mind, I'm like, just
Just do
do
it.
it.
Right. Well,
But
do
it's
you
like,
want me to
huh?
get in the way?
Yes, please tell me.
Okay. So, what gets in the way are these two words core beliefs. And we have them about these four areas of our life. We have core beliefs about ourselves, about others, about the world or society in general, and about God. Those are the four categories that all of our beliefs would fall in. Now, you and I, because we're both Christians, we might have a ton of overlap with things that we believe. We might believe that the Bible is infallible and that Jesus was the Son of God and the Son of Man and the only perfect human and our Messiah and all of these things. But I also have core beliefs about me that you would say, well, I don't deal with that. What are you talking about? That's weird. Right. So we have a ton that are individualized to us. And so this comes up a lot when I'm working with people that are trying to make lifestyle changes of any kind. Obviously, this is what I'm working with the most. But they're coming to me saying, I can't lose weight. Or they're coming to me saying, I can't get over this particular hurdle in my marriage. And
Yes, that's
we talk
another good one.
yeah, we talk about what we're, what to do, and we go through all these things. And it's, maybe a session or two beyond that, that either myself or the patient will realize, like you said, we've already talked about what needs to happen. So now why are we still talking about it? Right? Like that's a blunt way of saying it, but it's basically, why are we talking about the exact same thing? As a new therapist, I would get so frustrated. I would get so frustrated because I just didn't get it. I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be that kind of therapist that listens to people talk about the same thing for 10 years. I'm not going to do that. And then I realized, okay, Kimberly, you've got to be smarter because you love people. You need to get to the bottom of what's going on here. And it was when I started, doing research and self-teaching myself regarding CBT and realizing that I could want to, well, give me an example of something that's not weight related, because we've talked about that. What would be something that is like a relationship kind of goal?
Mm, okay. So I have another person that the relationship, their marriage is not doing so great. So the husband tells her, there's certain things that you need to do, but she's tired, she has kids, da da da. So, but she also says, I know what he's asking me to do, but I just can't. Like, I'm always tired. And she's a believer. So she's like, maybe this is a spiritual thing. Like, I don't understand what is happening.
Good. That is a good example. So,
And I don't even know what to say. We've been stuck together because I'm like, again, my thing would be just do it. If he's asking you, just this is a 1, 2, 3. Simple. But it's again when you're in that, yeah, when you're going through that, because again, if I think about myself how I was that I just didn't have nothing. I didn't want to do nothing.
well, I certainly don't want to oversimplify it, because there's many times where other things can also be at play, because it sounds like it's a possibility that you're hinting at marital type things. And I talk about those things all the time with people. Again, it goes back to those four categories, right? So if there's something happening in the marriage where the husband is making a request of something or the wife is making a request, and it sounds like, well, this is what's going to make things better if you just did this, and the person's not able to really do that, there's usually some kind of belief that's trapped in the beliefs I have about myself or beliefs I have about him or her that are causing me to, like I said, the thoughts, feelings, behavior. So something's getting in the way that I think, i.e., believe. A belief is going to be stronger than a thought that causes me to not feel whatever the feeling is that I need to be able to serve him in that way. And it could be something like, I'm not attractive, right? It could be something like, I don't like the way that my body looks. It could be, I don't have time for that, or I already had too much on my plate. What are you doing for me? Right? So this is where it gets tricky, because we were saying this before, if people are not aware of what their distorted thinking is, do you actually think they're going to be aware of what their core belief would be? That's the barrier to the thing. No, that's a huge ask, right? If you think you're seeing glass eyes, or deer in the headlights look, just wait. What you're asking of them is like, what do you mean? Right? So it takes time, and it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of patience on the part of, because I love that you said we got stuck together. I've had lots of moments like that where the patient doesn't know this, but I am like on the screen and talking to the person, but inside I'm going, Lord, you've got to bail me out of this. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know what's going on. Throw me a nugget here. What's happening? I'm not seeing, right? Because he's aware of that. Us two humans trying to duke it out, sometimes we're like, I don't know, I don't get it. But I always go back to my CBT roots. It always helps me to be able to see, okay, if I can get the patient talking more about whatever that thing is, I'm usually able to pinpoint it. Because I might ask them a question and say, what do you think you bring to the marriage? When you think about your husband, just in general, what are some of the adjectives that come to mind for you? See, if they say something like childlike, like I have to be I'm basically the mom, I have to parent him, unmotivated, whatever, lazy, whatever. If they're saying things like that and they're being honest, I can say, well, then I bet you're really struggling with intimacy, aren't you?
And then it'll be like ding ding ding. That's what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because women are not attracted to that. Women are not attracted to someone that they have to take care of like that they have to be the mom of. So yes, can you fix that? Absolutely. In order to help that person, and the person you're talking about, to not feel shame, because they probably do feel shame. When a person is saying on the surface level, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm showing up session after session, not doing anything. Then I always have to just dig a little bit deeper and say, let's look at the why. Let's look at why this is not happening. Could you move certain things out of your room or out of your closet to clear some space? Absolutely, you can do that. You are capable of doing that. If you're not doing that, why are you not doing that? Are you being passive aggressive about towards somebody that you live with? Because that's what passive aggressive is. It's communicating without using words. Right? So I might want my closet to look really nice, but because I'm so fed up with whoever I share that closet with, I might just throw things on their side. And,
Mhm.
and it's still hurting me. It's like, I don't realize this is hurting me, that it still looks funky, but I'm not using the words to say, listen, I need you to do your part. So I hope that that kind of even comes close to answering the question because it's a deep one. I mean, you asked that was a biggie.
Yes, because again, it's been a journey. I'm like, just doing. See, I think about, and I feel like it does play the part. You mentioned it before when you said about the 12 steps, because I'm also in the 12-step program. And again, it goes hand in hand of giving your will, right? Take it, I can do it. But also, I think about it as like that will of how bad one do you want it? That's how I look at it. Like, how bad do I want this? Like, how bad do I not want to be unhappy? How bad I want the relationship to get better? How bad I want like the better job or better environment? And then it's like, God, I can't do this on my own. Can you please help me, kind of thing, and surrender whatever. Take it into the extreme. What happens if in your marriage, then he asks for a divorce? Then you want to take action. Let's not let it get to this point to where now it's now a have to kind of thing. Like having that will, like, oh my God, now I have to fix it after it's broken. But like all the signs were there. Like again, we've been talking about like the things, the things. It's just kind of like shaking. How bad do you want it to be better? Because again, I ask them all the time, I'm like, girl, but you're not happy. So it's like, fix it. Because at the end of the day, think about you. You're not happy here. And I think about it about me. Back then, I wasn't happy. Every day, the same thing, the same art.
For our happiness. We are. So
Yeah.
that's where people also get really tripped up with this whole conversation is they're thinking an old lie that I think a lot of us were told is I'll be with you until you don't make me happy anymore.
Hmm.
Really, we owe it to ourselves to be the best version of ourselves and to look at the areas that we're unhappy with and do what we can to deal with that. It doesn't mean that you're owning everything about the relationship either. It just means that you're looking at if I'm really unhappy, is there anything that I'm doing that it's contributing or anything that I can look at that would make this better? Because we owe that to ourselves and we owe to our spouse or whoever it is that we're talking about in this significant relationship to communicate, like authentically communicate about what we need. Because in marriages in particular, that's where we find so many of these distortions. We assume. I just talked about this with some friends last week on vacation. That so many times we think that, this person, I've been married to this person for so long. Don't they know by now? Isn't that ridiculous that I have to even point this out? We've been married for 15 years. And I say, well, do you know that about you? Or did you just figure that out about you? Right? You're always evolving. You're always learning things about yourself. Why would you expect someone and hold that bar that you can't even measure up? Right? And it's just like think about our relationship with the Lord. We're never ever going to know everything that we want to know about him. There's always going to be something that we are striving on that journey that just keeps pulling us in to a devoted, intimate relationship with him because we want to know more. We're a student, right? That's the definition of being a disciple. Well, if God is comparing his relationship to us like a marriage, then why wouldn't we able to why can't we transfer that over and say I'm never going to know everything about my spouse. I always want to learn more. I always want to be that student that nobody else gets to be. Then that keeps things, exciting and not stale, right? But there's just a lot of distortions wrapped around all the things that we're saying that keep people from doing that because they have these expectations, they have these should statements. And just like you said a second ago, people wait until they're at a point of desperation. They wait until their painful problem is so big. Again, here's the pride sneaking in, that they think, I don't know what else to do. I guess I have to go see somebody. I guess I have to do whatever because I've tried everything I can. Well, why can't that be an earlier resort where we say, I don't like where this is going. I
Hmm.
really want to get some help. Because if I didn't have a lot of pride, that would be really easy for me, right? I'd be able to say, I need to go see somebody. I've got a rash. I've got a problem. But instead, we wait. And I say this all the time amongst people that are my colleagues and people that, that I'm trying to teach. No one comes to me excited. No one ever comes to me and says, I've been waiting for the right time to start therapy. This has been so exciting. You have no idea. No, people aren't, in tears, and they're not miserable most of the time either, but no one's excited about it. In fact, I have been hated before I ever even got to introduce myself because people are, meeting me in inpatient settings at a hospital and they're like, what are you here for?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or I'll have people contact me and they're in a place of just extreme jadedness. Like, no one's been able to help me. How do you think you're going to? How is your therapy so special? Right? And I would take all of that personal if I didn't understand what I'm telling you. That people wait and they wait and they wait until they have nothing else. That's how a lot of people come to Jesus. That's how a lot of people come to the helping profession, right? But it just doesn't have to be that way. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
That's what I tell them. It took me all of that to get to here. So I don't want them to get to there
You want to try to
to
say before.
make that point, because again, it's like, girl, I did that. I struggled it. There's other ways. Look at the signs. And also what helped me a lot too, at the beginning of the whole mind shift journey, God finding, it was more like self-love for me too, because I'm being aware of my feelings and I don't want to feel this way. And I'm not gonna allow the outer environment take me from that. Now God loves me and now I love me so much that I don't want to feel like that. So what can I do every day to help me mentally, to help me spiritually, to help me physically? I started eating healthy. I stopped drinking alcohol. Like, I want to be good. Like I said before, living with purpose and then just be happy. I feel
Well,
like that.
it's the
And it's not like happy, like, but it's like content no matter what lifing happens.
peaceful.
Like, I'm good. I know it's gonna get better.
Right. And with God, it does. It does. Like you were saying, the first thing you said in that sequence I noticed is loving God. Loving God and understanding Him more cause you to love yourself. And I think that's a huge thing. I hope people don't miss that because that's true self esteem. Again, it goes back to a lot of people are going to, or all people are going to change their mind about what they think about me and their opinions about me, but God never has. And so all I have to do is go to the Word and start reading the things He says about me. And if I believe Him, and I believe that that's true, then I have no business trying to convince him otherwise and to say, well, you really don't love me. Right. Again, because that's prideful. I know that's going to surprise people, but that is still prideful. To try to convince God that what he created in you and the way he created the way you look was not okay. It was not right. He's the God of the universe. He makes no mistakes. And he's the author of life, right? Not us humans. He just allows us to participate in that. It was his decision. And so that's what causes people to truly love themselves is when you see yourself through his lens and you realize to him, I'm precious. To him, I'm beautiful and I'm chosen and I'm loved and I'm not worthy, but I'm worth it. And there's a really big difference. He proved that we were worth it, but he's the only one who's worthy. So it's really hard, even on a bad day, to ever really get to that place. No, if something chemically is off, I'm the first person to say, you need to go see your psychiatrist. This does not sound like you. We need to make a crisis plan right now and let me know when you get there, right? Like I'm the first person to do that. But outside
Because
of
that is a thing,
it is a thing.
like the
I just
hormone
deal with it.
disbalance and all that.
Right. If you miss a medication that you need, it is absolutely going to mess with your thinking. And you are going to be verbalizing things that people that know you would realize that is not how you think. And I've had to tell people that. That's what I love about my job is when I know people well enough, I can say, that is not you speaking. I need you to know that. This is not how you talk. This is not how you see yourself. I can give you lots of examples of how you really do when you're doing really well and you're functioning. And it's because of that I'm going to ask you to call your psychiatrist and get seen as quickly as possible because something isn't right. This is beyond what you and I can do, right? We're going to make up for this after the medication gets resolved. But there's something going on here. So outside of something like that, when you realize, how God sees you. It is so, so, so much easier to take that hand that you see coming into the water, right? And pulling Peter out and saying, "Oh, that's right. That's right, God. You've already told me that my life is yours. You've already told me that you know how many hairs are on my head, that you count all of my tears in a jar, that you have plans for every single day of my life, that I have a 1% fingerprint. Like my fingerprint is proof that there's no other person in this entire world that ever will be me. I'm
Hmm.
irreplaceable." Right? So when you start, and that's why I say mental health without God, it's just not the same. Because if he created everything about what we're talking about, then he is like the owner's manual. He's like taking
God.
your vehicle to the manufacturer and saying, there's something wrong. I don't know what to do, but you deal with this all the time. You created this for. Tell me what to do. That's how we need to be viewing ourselves and saying, I need to go to my creator. He knows me. He knit me together. He can explain this to me. He can help me see what I need to see, and something I probably wouldn't hear from anybody else.
I love that. And that's when the power of prayer comes in. I wanted to touch a little bit about that because that's what I always talk about, the prayers, because I'm like, the prayers do work.
Yes.
But what is your way of that you recommend power of prayer that works?
My way of praying. Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a great question.
There's always this way you have to have a long prayer. You have to have,
Um,
conversation. Like, I be praying in the car, sometimes washing dishes, but it's more like the intentional prayer kind of thing that gets me. It doesn't matter, and I tell everybody that it doesn't matter where you pray or how you pray, just really talk to God. Like really give it to God. And that's where the intentional comes from
yeah.
for me.
Well, I guess I could start by saying what it isn't for me, and then it would kind of walk me to what it is. It's not ritualistic. I'm not a believer at all in certain kinds of prayers that you have to pray a certain way and that you have to say these exact words outside of what we call the Lord's Prayer that's mentioned in the New Testament. I just don't see that scripturally being supported, that we have to say these certain things. And so what I see being much more supported is the fact that Jesus would often go away from all people and all things, like take away all that stimuli and just go to God the Father and just communicate whatever. Like some of those things are not recorded. We have no idea what he was actually saying, but we know that we have to assume that it was very authentic, right? Because the prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane was so like grueling of like, I'm choosing your will, but let it be known. Like if this thing can pass, that's what I want, right? I don't want to go through this, but you are way more important, right? So there's these glimpses of things that we see as far as like modeling what prayer is supposed to be, and it's supposed to be frequent, but again, not like, okay, at 1 and 3 and 5, but just like he needs to be our number one go-to. If we're trying to make a big decision, if we're feeling alone, if we're feeling stressed out, if we're feeling like we just need an extra hour in our day and we cannot visualize how are we going to pull this off, he needs to be the first thing and not the last thing. It's just like I said about therapy. There's so much of like an overlap that, don't let therapy be the very last thing that you try, and don't let Jesus be the very last person that you ever go to. Let him be the first thing that when you feel that change in your spirit, you feel something change in your body, that you say, God, I'm so glad that you hear me. I'm so glad that I don't even really have to utter words. That when I'm overwhelmed, I can just say Jesus.
And
And
he
that's
knows.
right. And it's the name that changes heaven and earth, like it shifts things. And so I don't feel any stress or any pressure about like how I'm supposed to pray at all. I just know that he's my favorite person to talk to. There's no other time that I feel so comforted and so known and so loved, and that I can walk away from a conversation and literally feel different. No conversation I have with any person. No, people say that about therapy, and it's a huge honor that after an hour with me, they can say, I feel like a
I
different
feel so
person.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't get that experience except for with the Lord. I can spend time in prayer and in worship, and I literally feel like a dopamine rush, like I feel like a
Hmm.
very different person. But I will say this, I absolutely do believe in being specific. And I don't know where I got that, or I don't know exactly what I would point that to. I just know that it's very different to say, Lord, will you please just watch over me? Will you please watch over my family? There's things he's going to do anyway because he's a good God. And then there's things that we are showing him, I believe you can do this. You don't owe me anything, but I know you can do this. And so I'm going to ask, Lord, that no human can pull this off, but you can heal my child. You can heal my leg. I am asking you to show yourself in this situation, that you're going to give me favor when I go into that interview. That if this is the job you have for me, nothing is going to stop that from happening. No matter if I flub up the whole thing, you're going to make this happen because it's for your will. Like, there's certain ways that when we're specific, he shows up because I think he really is honored by our faith in him, right? Because that's different than just saying, oh, I'm a Christian and oh, I believe in God. Even the demons believe in God. But it's different to say, no, I know you. I know you, God. I know your character. I know the things that you did in the Old Testament and the New Testament. I know that you reveal yourself in very similar ways now. And I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you to show up in my life. So I'm done with those big prayers of, Lord, just please give us good health and forgive us from all of our sins. I think a lot of our parents' generation and older, they really were taught that that's kind of how you pray. You just cover everything.
Mhm.
But I think it's different when you say, Lord, I caught myself being untruthful. I caught myself in a moment of pride. You revealed to me this part of my life that I don't really want, but it's there. And I really want your help and I need your help. And I don't want my life to be my own, right? Like, I want to die to myself and serve you alone. So help me to change this part of my life. Those specific things have just been so glorious in my life that I can tell my friends and tell everybody and say, this is what he did. I prayed this and he did this.
Yes. See, that is the power. For sure, for sure. Because I've seen it left and right. And it's more, oh my God, thank you. And then I feel like that gratitude, that's where my gratitude comes from. Because it's like every struggle, and again, I still struggle, right? But every struggle that I asked for, any moment, I seen him come through. I'll say this one quick story. Believing in faith and having all of that, my son gets hit by a car not so long ago, 2 years ago. Hits by a car, broke his leg. My faith is, what am I going to do? Because now I really need to pull from God. And when I'm telling you that we were praying even with the doctors when they were doing surgery, and I don't know, my mom was like, we need to pray. That's when I seen him come through. So now for me, it's like, if I seen him come through so many times, how I cannot believe, hope, and have that faith that he's going to come through again when I'm going through the things again,
Right.
you know?
Right. No,
It's just,
I think about so many of the stories in the Old Testament in particular. Well, no. I take that back. Old and new when I say this. Where Jesus himself would say something like, either he'd say, "Oh, ye of little faith," like when he's sort of like reprimanding the disciples, right? Like, you've seen me do all these insane miracles and you're still not going to believe this? You still don't get this? Or also when he would heal somebody, sometimes what he was saying is like, go in peace, your faith has healed you. And to me, I take those messages in a way of, really anybody can say, oh yeah, I'm going to pray, or, oh, I really, I believe God is powerful. But it's when you kind of enter that realm of, I know you, and I'm calling down every single power from heaven to this earth, that your presence is going to be in this room, that you are going to be guiding these doctors specifically, whether they know you or not. You are going to inhabit this and you're going to make this happen because this is your child. These other things don't even matter, but this is your child. I think I'm not saying he does it every time. I'm not a believer in that at all, that every single time we pray that he's going to perform a miracle.
I would have been a millionaire because I'd be asking God.
No, I know, right? But when you look at these really big miracle stories that are true miracles, a lot of times I think what you'll see as the common thread is that people were praying in great faith. They were willing to accept whatever he did, but they knew that he was capable, right? It's just like the lady who reaches out and touches the hem of his robe and says, that's all I needed. I knew that if I could just touch that, I didn't have to have a conversation, right? She was absolutely humble. She was the opposite of what I was talking about regarding pride. She's like, I don't need him to see me. I don't need to have a conversation. In fact, I'm kind of embarrassed. I just know him. He's unique. He's special. The hem of his robe is different than any of you yahoos over here in Israel. I want to touch him. And
Yeah,
what does he say to her? Your faith has healed you, and calls her daughter. So if
I
we don't
truly.
pay attention to these things and take that away into the 21st century, we are missing something so big where he's saying, I could be doing so much more. I could be doing so much more in your life that you're not even putting yourself out on the line, that you believe me, that you really believe that I can do this and that I'm capable and that I am the one true God.
And he can. And he just want us to ask. I tell everybody, just ask. Have that relationship because it's good and it works. And we seen it throughout everywhere. And I'm totally going to send my friends your way so maybe they could work with you on kind of get those things because it is so good and I love the godly way that you do your practice and how you helping people. So where can my people find you? I'm gonna put it in the show notes, but for I put this on Spotify as well. So where can they find you?
Well, I will say that, and before I even say like what the sites are, or the different methods and ways to find me, is that one of the things I love, love, love about creating an online program is that because, I've really pared down my practice to not that many people because I'm trying to work with more people in the United States. And as a Texas therapist, I'm only licensed in Texas. I can't treat people outside of the state, right? Unless they're not using insurance. And that doesn't happen all the time. So my program allows me to treat anybody in all 50 states. And so I will say, before you start, labeling, oh, online program, oh, that's not personal. If any of those thoughts are coming to you, just contact me and let me set up an assessment to talk with you for 30 minutes. It's a free assessment. Like I said, I'm really good at listening very quickly, and I can tell if there's enough distorted thinking going on that you would benefit from my program, where you work at your own pace while you're working with me, or I just need to get a kind of a grasp of what you're struggling with, and then do my search that I do and find people in your area and say, here's your zip code, here's your insurance, and here's 5 people that kind of fit that criteria of dealing with anxiety or whatever it is. But I would say, first and foremost, look at my website. And it's basically KimberlyChristianLCSW.com. It will tell you success stories of what people say when I've helped them in this way. It'll tell you how to contact me, like directly. You can go to the contact me link. And it just kind of goes through, like, why is CBT effective? And how can you actually get better in 4 months? Because I know some people hear that and they think that is nuts. How can I have results in 4 months? But I can tell you, I basically have 17 years of practice getting to the point of developing this, where I can tell you, if you do it the right way, 100% you can get better.
I love it. I really do. In the godly way, expedite it. Don't
Yeah.
take years and years. Again, it's all about the solution and getting faster because the more that we're dwelling and in that mindset, then the less time we have to be good and happy. Right?
That's right. Well said. Thank you
Mm,
so much for this. This was really fun talking with you.
it was. I really loved it. Thank you so much.
It's
Stay
my
blessed,
pleasure.
stay happy,
Ew.
and I'm super grateful.
Me too. I hope that we get to do this again sometime.
I would love that. There you go. Part 2 coming
Part
soon.